So good day. I'm grateful to have the opportunity to speak to the IBC a little bit about Western Buddhism and what's happening in relation to the dissemination of Buddhism in the West and some issues that I think are really important for the IBC to consider. First of all, Buddhism in the West is flourishing. His Holiness the Dalai Lama talks about 10,000 Dharma doors or 84,000 Dharma doors. And we see many forms of Buddhism in the West. In fact, one of the fascinating things that's happening in Europe and in the United States is that practitioners are not only studying and practicing within the context of a particular lineage, but are also receiving teachings across the different schools of Buddhism. I think this is an interesting phenomenon in the West and maybe is not so common in the East. I think that also another very interesting valence that we're seeing in the West is the secularization of Buddhism. I think that has, every stick has two ends. This has two sides that are important to consider, and that is the divesting of the ethical substrate from secularized Buddhism and the impact of using Buddhist perspectives and techniques without a strong ethical substrate is something that needs to be examined in the conference. I also feel that issues related to gender bias have to be considered. The role of families in Buddhism is also another area that the IBC needs to look at. I think also what's very important is to use Western resources as part of a global resource to protect Buddhist sacred sites, whether those sites are in Afghanistan or in Tibet, China, or Southeast Asia. I mean, what we're seeing is in Afghanistan and Pakistan is and as well in Nepal and India, is that the sites associated with early Buddhism are extremely vulnerable to so-called resource development, and also to the stealing of artifacts from archaeological sites. So I think we have to work diligently to preserve the sacred sites associated with Buddhism. I also think the issue of gender bias is of utmost importance. The new lamas or the younger lamas like Sokne Rinpoche and the Karmapa are doing a lot at this point to create contexts wherein nuns are being educated, where there are more and more geshes who are women. What we know from the United Nations report is that in terms of cultural preservation, health and family systems, and health and communities, is that the education of women is really essential. Finally, I just want to address some issues around engaged Buddhism. Buddhism has a very strong contemplative valence, and I myself engage in that process sometimes in excess as a Zen practitioner. Actually, I think there's no excess when it comes to contemplation. But what is really important at this point is how Buddhism is moving into not only the mainstream, but also into issues that are related to human rights, environmental rights, social equity, protection of women and children, and also protection of the environment. It's really essential that we as Buddhists, protect and preserve our contemplative practices in the different schools of Buddhism. By the same token, each of those schools should have individuals who are profoundly involved with what is called by Sulakshi Viraksha, Thich Nhat Hanh, myself, Alan Sonoki, Lodi Gyari, engaged Buddhism, a Buddhism that is socially engaged. And then engaged Buddhism will have two really important aspects, and that is one of those aspects relates to the direct service to individuals or the natural world that's suffering, whether it's the protection of rainforests and so on, or of the rights of dying people, or working directly with dying people, or working with people who are incarcerated, or women who have been sex slaves. But there's also another aspect of engaged Buddhism, and this has to do with social transformation. How do we actually address issues as Buddhists around structural violence, around those institutions that foment suffering at the personal level, at the social level, and at the level of the natural world. So again, thank you very much for allowing me the opportunity to bring up some of the issues that I think are very important in terms of how Buddhism is developing globally. And I look forward to hearing the outcome from this conference. Thank you.